Mark Leslie Lefebvre. If you're not familiar with that name just yet, I'm super happy to introduce you to him because there's so much that this man brings to the self-publishing industry and actually the publishing industry as a whole. He's published, oh gosh, dozens of books by now, and he's even the founder of Kobo Writing Life, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's a great platform for self-published authors to go take a look at. It's not me trying to shill Kobo Writing Life by any means, but this tells you the importance of Mark, so much so that now he works for Draft to Digital as a consultant. So I had the unique opportunity to sit on down, talk with Mark, and we spoke a little bit about his past, his present, and a little bit of advice he has for other authors and self-publishers. Let's get to the interview. You've been in the publishing industry for about 3 decades now. What do you attribute to your longevity in this business?
I actually attribute the fact that I was attracted to this business first and foremost for my passion for storytelling, my passion for wanting to write and wanting to connect with other people. And I've been lucky enough to have worked as both a writer and on the bookseller side of things, both print, physical, bricks and mortar, and digital as it has evolved. And I think because of my involvement on both sides of things, when one of them got hard, I could focus on the other, and I've constantly batted back and forth, which is a weird way to balance one's life when they're both associated with books and writing and publishing. But I think what's been intriguing to me is I started in the late 80s, early 90s is when I first got published and started working in the industry simultaneously, like the same year, is that there's been enough change to keep things interesting. And that's both change in the industry, I mean, it's change in the technology, but also change in me as a writer and the things I was interested in writing and the formats even available to me as a writer. So I think that change has allowed it never to feel stagnant. There are so many opportunities that are still available that technology has presented that I haven't even had a chance to leverage. So my biggest challenge, as often is the case for writers, isn't a lack of ideas or things that I want to do. It's basically time management and figuring out where and how I'm going to fit those things in.
A lot of people don't realize this and how much of a superstar you are. And of course, you're humble as hell. But the name Mark Lefebvre is almost synonymous, at least in years past, with Kobo Writing Life. And a lot of people don't realize that you were one of the ones to found Kobo Writing Life. What led you to doing that? Was that something that you needed out of necessity, or is that just something that fell in your lap?
It is I call it the karmic value of the universe, that things lined up all at the right time. So it was a necessity for me, but it was also a necessity for the community. So I was watching Kobo as they appeared on the scene, and I was very fascinated, and I knew and respected Michael Tamblyn and the people who created Kobo. I didn't really know Mike Serbinis, but got to know him because I saw him at an industry event when he was talking about short covers, which was the original name for the company because they thought at the time that, nobody would ever want their own device. They'll just read on their phones, and they don't want to read anything longer than maybe short micro stories. And then Kobo was, the demand from the readers to say, no, we want to read full-size books. And I was working at a bookstore at McMaster University at the time, and I had purchased an espresso book machine. And it was my involvement in the technology of an espresso book machine. Just to, the high level view of it is that basically it's a machine. At the time, it ran about $200,000 US to get one. I had the 9th in the world and the 2nd in Canada. And it's a machine that will print and bind a book right on the spot in about 15 minutes. And so I was at all these tech events representing what we could do to disrupt the industry. And it used to be, if Amazon can ship it in 24 hours, I can print it for you in 15 minutes. I'll show you as an indie bookstore owner, because the university bookstore was independently run with fund and basically run by the student union. So all of the money we made went back to serving student services. So it was a feel-good operation. And I got to a point where people started using my espresso book machine to self-publish, and I could do it for them, for one copy. If you only wanted one copy, great. 5 copies, whatever. So Then when digital took hold, this was 2009, and so, the Kindle was out and the iPad was new, Smashwords was out, and I had clients who wanted to get their ebooks out into the world, and so I could help them get their books onto Kindle by helping them create a KDP account, and we could use Smashwords. Well, at the time, you put in a U.S. price, and Kobo was a Canadian company, so most of their customers wanted Canadian dollars, but you had no control. So I worked with Kobo, created an account with them, and said, okay, I want to be a vendor. I want to get these books into your platform. And it was a nightmare in terms of spreadsheets and FTP. And now I knew all that because I used to manage the data for Chapters Indigo. So I was used to working with XML files and Excel files and all the stuff that, for the data exchange. But
Wow.
I knew Kobo needed help. And I think I reached out to someone and said, hey, if I'd be interested, I've been watching you guys. If any opportunities come up, give me a call. I'd love to see how I can work with you guys. And I got a call from someone from HR who said, Michael Tamlin would love to have breakfast with you. Are you available tomorrow morning to meet him? And so I went. Michael and I had a meeting. He kind of shared, we think self-publishing is going to be big. I know you're a writer. I've known you because Michael and I were on a board of directors for BookNet Canada for several years when he was the head of that. And he said, he kind of explained what they wanted to do. We're trying to figure out a solution for self-published authors. We want to hire someone who comes up with a solution and figures this out and can actually be an author. The director of author relations as well, and just kind of work with the community as an author. And I was like, well, Michael, that job description is me. You just described me. So inevitably, I applied for the position, got the position. They hired me and said, okay, here's your phone, here's your laptop, here's your desk. Figure out how we're gonna deal with self-publishing. Are we gonna partner with someone? Are we gonna build it ourselves? You come up with a solution. And I came up with there were some options to buy or partner with people and white label a solution, but we decided building would be better. And even the name Kobo Writing Life was based on a program we had called Reading Life, where we gave stats to readers on how they were reading. And I thought, well, if we're going to build a brand, let's build a brand in sync with something like that's reader facing. This will be writer facing. So we went and copyright, we checked with the lawyers so we could trademark. Now, we couldn't trademark Writing Life. We could only trademark Kobo Writing Life because Writing Life was too generic. But and then we launched in 2012. It was an amazing experience. I absolutely adore all the people at Kobo. I still do. They're still good friends, and that was a great 6 years of my life.
It's so crazy, though, and hopefully I'm not asking anything too personal when I say, what led you away from Kobo Writing Life, and now you're working with a different publishing platform, and I'm sure you'll share that.
Of course. So my job was to come up with a solution for self-published authors. And I started off, it was myself. When we launched, I had one other person on my team. And then as we grew and expanded, I ended up having to hire, I think, managers for different regions. And I built an amazing team of wonderful people. And Christine Monroe, when I hired her as the U.S. regional manager, or for that territory, I saw the potential she had. So from the beginning, I was just thinking, she's the one who's going to replace me. She's the one who has the vision, has the industry experience, as she worked as a literary agent. And so I got to a certain point where Kobo Writing Life was, and it still is, 1 in every 4 books that sells on Kobo comes from Kobo Writing Life. So they're among the biggest publishers in the world in terms of production for volume. Not necessarily, the dollar's a little lower because indie authors don't price as high as traditional publishers. And after 6 years, I looked at my team and I thought, these guys are amazing. They're awesome. Everything's working well. Chrissy's ready to step up into the role. I'm holding her back by being here. And I wanted to write. I wanted to do more. And I was also pretty exhausted from the daily commute. So I was thinking, okay, I don't want to go up. I don't want to move up to an executive position. I liked working more in the weeds and directly with authors. So I'm going to step back, go do some other things. Maybe I can start writing full time, because again, working 80 hours a week isn't conducive to getting more work out into the world. And I left, and then I found out if I have too much time on my hands, I get nothing done. So I did start consulting. I started the Stark Reflections podcast. When I left, I knew Chrissy was shorthanded for a while because she had to step into my role and then fill her old role. So I offered to assist with the podcast, and I did a few episodes, and I thought, wow, the podcast was a great excuse, as you know, Dale, to speak to really cool people, right? I have a chance to chat with people and learn. I missed that, so I started in January 2018 the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast, so I could still have that excuse to call people up and say, hey, can I talk to you? Can I pick your brain? It's for my listeners, really. It's not for me. And
Right.
it wasn't until now with the consulting, the income was very sporadic. So my writing income was already sporadic, up and down, up and down. My consulting was up and down, up and down. I got to the end of the year. I went to Novelist Inc. It was very expensive. And I remember setting a goal for myself that if I don't come back from Novelist Inc. with something that's going to allow me to, get to a point where I don't have to worry about how to pay the mortgage or how to pay the rent, I'm gonna have to do something else. I gave this a shot, and it wasn't even a full year. I did not want to go back into the corporate world, that was for sure. But I wanted to try different things. I even applied. Hey, I've never worked in a library. Let me apply to work there part time and shelf books. Because again, I wanted to start at the bottom and work my way up. And I was having drinks with Chris Austin, CEO of Draft to Digital. And I'd worked in parallel with Chris and Dan and Kevin and all those guys for years and loved and respected them. So I knew them well. And we were chatting, and Chris was looking for someone to do business development with Draft to Digital. And so because I'm Canadian, there was an issue with not being able to hire me. It's just a tax thing, right? From paying people from outside the country and whatever. It's just a complex issue. And I didn't want full-time work anyway. So we agreed to 20 hours a week. And I thought, this is the best of both worlds. I get to work with people I respect and admire. I get to have 20 hours a week for writing, consulting, whatever. So I have sort of a baseline, knowing that I can continue to work on long-term projects with cool people, some income coming from that, and then I have that other part. And my writing got more efficient. All the other pieces, because I only had 20 hours a week, I was a lot more efficient with scheduling. And then the other reason why I think it was a good move for me is my partner Liz and I, when in the summertime, she will travel with me to conferences because we get to go to discover beer places. And I was at a conference in Calgary, Alberta, when words collide, and a writer who had been traditionally published for a long time approached me and asked for my advice about ebooks and digital and where do I get started. And I pulled them aside, and Liz was there, and I was like, well, okay, well, the Kobo can do this for you, and we can do this with Kobo, and this and Kobo. And Liz kind of didn't smack me in the head, but the equivalent of a smack in the head, saying, he pulled you aside because he wanted your help. And all you gave him was Kobo. You're actually shortchanging him. He needs everything. He needs to understand the bigger picture. And so for me, I love Kobo. I still do. I read on Kobo. But yeah, I was only focusing on one retailer, and there's 5 major retailers, and not to mention, dozens and dozens of other places where you can sell digital products. And so it was actually not long after that I left Kobo, and I hadn't intended on going to Draft to Digital, but the timing was right, and I thought, well, now I can stop focusing on one retailer, and now I can focus on any and all, like anyone. Because Draft to Digital, like Kobo, has that collaborative spirit of we should all be working together and helping each other out. So it was ideal timing, but thank goodness for Liz and her intuitive nature. He was asking for your help, not Kobo's help, and that was a splash of cold water in the face that helped me realize, I was helping him with one place, but I could help people with more, especially with my industry experience.
Yeah, you're not just the industry experience. I mean, you're a prolific author. I mean, you've published a lot of books, and you've worked with other authors as well to co-write. I know you did one with Joanna Penn just recently. So I think the burning question, a lot of people see that you've been around for a while, that you're a prolific author. What's the publishing process work for you? Like, what type of iterations are you putting out upon launch? Where do you distribute to? Give me kind of a good overview. Obviously, we could probably be here for the next 2 hours talking about launch strategies.
Of course. Great question. So I also embrace traditional publishing. So with some books, I go the traditional route and decide, okay, this book is a souvenir. It needs to be sold in print, needs to be distributed in bookstores. Therefore, I will pitch this to a publisher. But if I want to make money, and I want to be in control, and I don't want to be, stuck with this book is at the hands of somebody having to sit down with someone in New York and convince them to buy it for a chain, for a 4-season selling cycle. That's a different beast. But when it comes to self-publishing, I typically go direct to Kindle Direct Publishing. I go direct to Kobo Writing Life. I go direct to Google Play Books. Now that it's a really great platform, dramatically improved from 2009, I'll tell you that. And I have, well before I put the Draft to Digital hat on, I was using Draft to Digital's free pub conversion, even when I worked at Kobo. And then I used Draft to Digital to get to the other places, Apple, Barnes & Noble, Tolino, Viblio, and then all the library systems. So I kind of have those main accounts to get to the majority of platforms. And my methodology is I want to get to more platforms. I also don't want to have to create 23 accounts. So part of the joy I have with Draft to Digital in my role as business director of business development is working with partners to help authors. Oh, okay, all the author has to do is push a button? Okay, let's do that. And so that's been part of my thrill at Draft to Digital, is having been able to negotiate and turn on new platforms too, which I will continue to do, especially in the new beautifully combined world where we have more opportunities to help authors.
Folks that are, you're listening to this podcast, you're probably saying like, man, Mark looks like he's got it all together, but believe it or not, he's running on fumes. This poor guy just came back from helping out an event called Superstars Writing Seminars. How was the event for you? And do you think that you're going to make it here the rest of this week?
Great question, Dale. Thank you. Superstars Writing Seminars, I've been attending for 10 years now. It's held in Colorado Springs, and it was originally founded by Kevin J. Anderson, Rebecca Mesta, Dave Farland, rest in peace. We just lost him recently. Brandon Sanderson and Eric Flint. And James Owen is also a founder. So I have now come on board as co-director because Kevin couldn't get rid of me. I just kept insisting on coming back. But Superstars Writing Seminars is, and I think 40% of the attendees, it's a small conference. It's only 250 people, and it's very expensive. But there were about 40% new attendees, and I talked to so many people who actually are still saying and posting on social media that it was an absolutely life-changing experience to be welcomed into such a group of people that are there. I mean, it initially started as New York Times bestsellers like Kevin and folks just helping other writers navigate digital publishing. When I first got there, I was the only voice of self-publishing. It was like all tracks about traditional publishing, and I was the odd guy saying, hey, you have ebooks, and we should talk about how you can self-publish. And now, I mean, this year we brought in Craig Martell, right? 20 books to 50K. And so we're bringing in way more people from the industry. So it's a lot more balanced of a look at what possibilities are there. I'm running on fumes today because it was a long travel day, but I'm just catching my wind again. And I'm so inspired by the beginning writers I met who are just so enthusiastic and have such brilliant ideas, and I can't wait to see what they do with them. I'm inspired by hearing, one of the best talks from Jim Butcher I've ever seen. And I'm inspired just from, oh my God, I got to hug so many people. Like that alone was worth it. I mean, because of, lockdown and isolation for all this time. It was just an absolutely overwhelming experience. And I'll need time to get my win back for next year, but I'm going to be there front and center, giving 110%, just like I did this year.
Nice. One last question. What's one piece of advice you can share with authors about writing and publishing?
I like to say that there are 3 Ps of publishing success. There's more. I marketed 7 when I sold a book in that title, but patience, practice, and persistence are the keys. Overnight success takes a lot of time. It takes fingers on keyboard, butt in chair, and not giving up and believing in yourself. Just remember, most people say and think that they will write a book. If you have written a book, or you are in the process of writing a book, you're already extraordinary. You're already a beautiful exception. And you've got to believe in yourself. And I would say, please stop calling yourself a budding writer or a wannabe writer or a whatever writer. You are a writer, and you need to own that with pride and professionalism. Oh my God, there's 2 more Ps. But that's really, really important. Don't give up on yourself. It can take a long time. It's taken me a long time. I've been in this industry, started in the mid 80s. I didn't get published till 1992. And then I discovered a lot of great opportunities along the way because I just would not give up, and I was very, very persistent. And I think writers need to remember those things.
Special thanks to Mark for taking some time out of his day to spend a little bit of time with us and share some 411 and some insights on his experience in the publishing business. Hey, if you would like to help support the cause, make sure that you go over and visit the link inside the show notes that goes over to Mark's bookstore over on Amazon and grab up a book. I'm sure he'll thank you for it. In the meantime, I will see you folks next week.